Welcome back. We're continuing on to part 5 of the case of Alexis Pickett. Now, we are picking up in the inconsistencies in Matt Sayers' statement that is in the criminal complaint. A further review of Matt's phone records show that from at least 8:05 a.m. to 9:25 a.m., Matt never contacted the police department or dispatch to inquire about the fire, and if this was true information. Even though he had relayed to Investigator Mancuso in the second interview on November 14th, 2025, that he loved Alexis so much. At 9:34 and 10 seconds, Investigator Mancuso asked Matt where he went after he left Alexis's apartment the last time. Matt said that he went down a few blocks because, quote, sometimes she texts me back. Matthew said that he waited a little bit and then left and went home. However, Investigator Rosnow's review of Matt's phone extraction confirmed that Matt's phone was in Genoa, Wisconsin, the entire time of this last encounter. At 9:34 and 39 seconds, Investigator Rosnow asks Matthew if ES, his wife, knew where Matthew was last night, and he said, quote, yeah. Investigator Rosnow also asked Matthew if ES was aware that he was intimate with Alexis, and he said, yeah. Matthew then starts crying. Matthew said he tries to tell ES what happens. Investigator Mancuso then asked Matt if he talked with ES last night when he got home, and he said, yeah, she confronted me, and I said I didn't want to talk about it. Matthew said he just went to bed. However, during an interview on November 13th, 2025, at 12:11 p.m., Investigator Mancuso asked ES if she talked to Matthew about leaving last night, and she said no. ES then said, quote, I don't think so. ES then said no because Wednesday is game night and they play games. ES said Matthew usually plays later after people get offline and she goes to bed. ES also said she thought she reset Arthur's, that's their child, story speaker in his room at around 4 a.m. I asked ES if she saw Matt at that time, and she said no. I then asked ES when the last time she talked to Matt was, and she said 6 a.m. when he texted good morning. ES said she thought she first saw Matthew at approximately 6:50 a.m. At 9:36 and 29 seconds, Matt stated that, quote, the thing with Alexis is new again within the past couple of weeks. He is then informed by Investigator Rosnow that he is going to hang onto his phone, and Matthew said that he doesn't feel comfortable with that. Investigator Rosnow then tells Matthew he is going to take his phone. Matthew then said, quote, okay, and provided the password of 2121 when asked what his password was by Investigator Rosnow. At 9:40 and 55 seconds, Matt tells Investigator Rosnow that ES is aware of this summer when he was with Alexis, and also the most recent, which Matthew said was the past week. During his interview with ES, Investigator Mancuso asked how long the affair with Alexis had been going on. ES said that, according to Matthew, and she doesn't know if she can fully trust him, the first time they were together was maybe before OM was born. ES said this is when she assumed they conceived OM. I asked ES if Matthew told her he had recently been with Alexis, and she shook her head in a yes manner. I asked ES when Matthew told her this, and she said it had to have been a couple months ago because he had a relapse over the summer. ES said when Matthew was telling him that he had relapsed, this meant that he had sex with Alexis. I asked ES if Matthew told her that he left last night, and she said no, and said she assumed that he went to bed. At 9:41 and 20 seconds, Matt told Investigator Rosnow ES didn't know that he left, but when he got home, Matthew said ES asked him where he was, and he told her he was at Alexis's. Investigator Rosnow asked Matthew how that went, and he said ES turned her back and walked away. Matthew said ES seemed fine this morning, but he didn't know. Investigator Mancuso had asked ES if Alexis had been texting her, and she said no, and she said that Matthew had found as many of her profiles and phone numbers as he could and blocked all of them. ES said she made it a point to never see or communicate with Alexis because she had to spend a bunch of money on extra therapy that basically hypnotized her to not think about Matthew and Alexis having sex. ES said that she would be pretty sure if she saw Alexis in person, all that would go down the crapper. At 9:45 and 20 seconds, Matt stated that the last time he was at Alexis's, he was there for maybe an hour or an hour and a half. Matthew said after he left the house, he pulled over and waited 10 or 15 minutes to, quote, see if she would text me to come back. I asked Matthew if Alexis texted him to come back, and he said she didn't. Matthew said he just went home after that. However, according to Matt's cell phone data, Matt never had his cell phone on his person when he was in the La Crosse area at the last time. Now, at 9:58 and 16 seconds, investigator Mancuso asked Matthew if ES knew that Alexis was pregnant, and he said, yeah, I told her when we found out. Matthew couldn't remember the exact date. I asked Matthew what ES's reaction was, and he didn't say anything. I asked Matthew if ES wanted a divorce, and he said she doesn't. Matthew then raised his hand in a I don't know type of gesture. Matthew said he and ES have been working on things for a long time, and things were getting better. However, with investigator Mancuso had asked again if she recalled having a conversation with Matthew, asking him if he had left in the middle of the night, and she said that she didn't think so, and she was pretty sure she was sleeping. I asked ES if she had any knowledge that Matthew left in the middle of the night last night, and she said no. She said she didn't remember Matthew leaving between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. this morning. ES told me the last time Matthew had, quote, relapsed was in July. I asked ES if Alexis was pregnant, and she said she didn't think so. ES said she's pretty sure he learned after the first time to wrap it up. ES said she is aware they used birth control. I asked ES if she was aware Alexis was pregnant, and she said no. ES then said, quote, God, I hope not. Why is this happening to me? F, expletive. At 10:10 and 56 seconds, investigator Rosnow asks Matt for further clarification of what happened once he left Alexis's apartment for the final time. Matt said that he took the, quote, road that leads to Quick Trip, so I stopped there and I waited like 10, 15 minutes to see if she would message me to come back. And she didn't. She didn't message me, so I just left. Investigator Rosnow asked Matthew why he would do that, and he said sometimes she does that. Again, according to investigator Rosnow's review of Matt Sierra's phone extraction, it was confirmed that Matt's phone was in Genoa during the entire time frame he was in La Crosse County at Alexis's apartment. Matt never had his phone that he uses to communicate with Alexis when he was in La Crosse the last time he was observed at her apartment. Now, the next part of this criminal complaint that we're going into is the preliminary autopsy results. Investigator Reed states that an autopsy of Alexis was performed by Dr. Michelle Stram and her staff at the Southeast Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office / the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. During the autopsy, Dr. Stram noted the absence of soot in AP's mouth, throat, and lungs. Additionally, a preliminary test of Alexis's blood indicated very low levels of carbon monoxide. Based on the absence of soot, coupled with very low levels of carbon monoxide in Alexis's blood, Dr. Stram concluded Alexis was deceased prior to the fire. Dr. Stram also identified a deceased fetus in Alexis's uterus. Dr. Stram stated it will be difficult to determine a cause of death because of the condition of the body. However, she stated there were no obvious signs of injury, although the skin of the body was burned off in most sections of the body. There were no signs of gunshots or stab wounds or similar types of injuries in the internal organs. There were no signs of internal bleeding. There were no cut marks on the skin by the wrists, arms, or neck. Dr. Stram said that suffocation / strangulation was a possibility, and that just because of the absence of injuries, it doesn't mean it couldn't have taken place. She said there was no way to know if she was suffocated or not, and she wouldn't be able to confirm whether or not Alexis was suffocated. Additionally, blood toxicology results indicated no illicit substances in her system. I'm going to have to stop here to end part 5, and I will see you right after this over in part 6. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I will see you in the next one.